So now using Excel, I want to graph this information. So the first thing I can do is say, all right, how much compounding time has passed? So I can say this is compounds time. In this case, the investment period is years. The next box, I'm going to say, what is the opening balance? So this is another way of saying at the very start of the year, how much money do I have? Then I can say, what is the interest rate? So that's the percentage that's being added in this investment or charged in a loan. And lastly, I could say, what is the closing balance? Or I could just say current balance. That works too. First little trick with Excel is if I double click a column line where the borders are, it'll auto fit the sizing to me. So rather than trying to drag it to sort of fit where you think, especially if you've got a big spreadsheet, you can't see everything, double clicking is a great way to do it. So firstly, I'm going to say, all right, I can have 0 years, which is the very start of the investment, and I want it to go up to 10. The next little trick is if I highlight a series of boxes that have a pattern, notice when I hover on the bottom right corner, it changes to a black plus. Now if I click and drag, it automatically figures out what the pattern I'm trying to do is. It's not always exact, sometimes you'll have to do it yourself, but for simple things, it can quite easily work out what is the pattern. So let's look at this. At 0 years, at the very start of this loan, I invested $1,000. And to make this look nicer, I can change my settings to counting. It puts a nice little dollar sign. For my interest rate, I could do this a couple of ways. I could use the equals tool, which then turns it into a calculator. And I could say 6 divided by 100, because that's 6%, and it automatically converts it to a decimal place. I could just go straight in and type 0.06 if I wanted to, that's completely fine as well. And now I'm going to change that to a percentage, just so it looks nicer. So firstly, this is the start of the loan, so I'm not going to do anything fancy here. I'm just going to say, we have $1,000. It's not really applicable, I could just leave that out. That's my start. Now what I want to do here is say, after 1 year, how much money do I have? If it's compounded interest, if it's compounded each year, after the first year, how much have I got? Well, I'm going to have, I'm going to go equals to create a calculator tool. I'm going to have the opening balance. So let's do that first. Let's go $1,000, change that to accounting. So I'm going to have this amount, my opening balance, and then I'm going to add 6%, because that's the interest rate, so I might even put that in brackets, 6% of the opening balance. Whoops, I've got to do 6% of, remember it means times, the opening balance. So if I look at this function, it says take your opening balance, add 6% of that, because that's my investment that I'm getting back in interest, and combine the two, and that'll give me my closing balance at the end of that first year. Now if I hit enter, after the first year I have $1,060. One really important trick here is if I'm going to use this box for everything, so what I could do now is say, let's make this even better, let's delete this, and say make this equal to the closing balance from the year before, because we know that the starting amount is going to be whatever you finished at the end of that year. Now, see what it's doing. It's taking this value. Watch what happens when I drag this down and autofill. At this point, it runs out, but if I look at the next box down, it's shifted. So this cell is now taking this box, this cell is taking this box, so on and so forth. So what it's doing is it automatically follows that pattern of take the box one above. In this case, if I drag, it's going to do the same thing with this orange box, this interest rate. It's going to go to the next line, which will be blank. So if I do that, you can see it's just going to give me the same amount for everything, which is not correct. So the trick to doing that and not making a cell change is if I just click within it anywhere and I press F4, it puts these dollar signs. So you could manually put dollar signs in as well, but F4 is the shortcut. And you basically just put a dollar sign on either side of the letter. And now when I drag, if I drag one down, for example, it keeps that, but it's moving everything else. And now I can just drag the whole thing down, and I've got my calculation. So I can see here it's gone, take this value, add 6% of it, that's my closing balance at the end of the 10th year. And it's repeating that pattern every step of every year. So that is my spreadsheet for calculating compound interest.